The station orbited a dying star, its red light bleeding through massive windows and painting everything in shades of blood and shadow. It was here, in the darkness between empires, that the powerful gathered to decide the fate of worlds they had never visited and species they considered beneath them. High Arbiter Zesrix of the Velkorath Dominion stood at the head of a curved table, his 4 arms folded across his armored chest as he watched the holographic display rotate slowly before him. The image showed a blue and green world, one of 47 that humans had claimed in just 2 centuries. "They spread like a disease," said Ambassador Thesic of the Morani Collective, her voice dripping with contempt. Her scaled face twisted in disgust as she studied the expansion maps. Zesrix nodded slowly, his compound eyes reflecting the starlight. The other species had taken millennia to expand across the galaxy, building their empires stone by stone, treaty by treaty. Humans had simply exploded outward like shrapnel from a bomb, claiming everything they touched. 200 years, Zesrix said, his voice like gravel scraping against metal. In 200 years they have done what took us 8,000. If we do not act now, they will swallow us all. The council chamber held representatives from 5 of the galaxy's elder races. They had ruled the stars since before humans learned to make fire, and they had watched with growing horror as this new species crawled out of its cradle and reached for the heavens. "Open war would draw condemnation from the neutral systems," said Lord Vethkai of the Sundered Kingdoms. His ancient face was lined with thousands of years of political scheming. "We cannot be seen as aggressors." "Then we do not let ourselves be seen at all," Zesrix replied, and a cold smile spread across his face. He pressed a button on the table, and the hologram changed. It now showed a symbol that made several council members shift uncomfortably in their seats. A circle of silence, broken only by a single blade. "The silent choir," Ambassador Thesic whispered. "You cannot be serious." "I am completely serious," Zesrix said. "They have never failed a contract in 8,000 years. 12 members, 12 perfect killers. They will do what our fleets cannot." The silent choir was legend and nightmare combined. They were assassins who had killed emperors and destroyed dynasties. They moved like shadows and struck like death itself. No target had ever escaped them. No guard had ever stopped them. "What is the target?" Lord Vethkai asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. Zesrix enlarged the hologram to show a sleek human vessel traveling through open space. The ship was called the HSS Olive Branch, and it carried humanity's most important diplomatic mission in decades. "Admiral Kara Vance," Zesrix said. "She commands humanity's diplomatic fleet and serves as their chief negotiator for the Kepler Accords. Without her and her senior staff, their government will fall into chaos." "And the blame?" Thesic asked. "Pirates," Zesrix said simply. "The region is known for them. No one will question it." The council voted, and the decision was unanimous. They would contact the silent choir that very night. 3 days later, in a place that existed on no star charts, the leader of the silent choir received the contract. His name was Kethrin the Voiceless, and he had killed more sentient beings than most plagues. Kethrin stood 7 feet tall, his body covered in skin that could shift colors to match any background. His eyes saw in spectrums that most species could not even imagine, and his reflexes had been enhanced by technology so advanced it seemed like magic. He read the contract details carefully, studying everything the council had provided about humans, their biology, their psychology, their weaknesses, and there were so many weaknesses. "Fascinating," Kethrin said to his gathered assassins, his voice barely above a whisper. "They have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Their bones break easily, their skin tears like paper, and they heal slower than almost any other species." His 11 finest killers stood before him, each one a master of death in their own right. They had killed warriors and kings, generals and gods. A ship full of human diplomats would be nothing. They are prey animals, said Syleth, Catherine's second in command. Her four blade arms clicked together in anticipation. Look at their eyes, forward-facing for focus, not for hunting. They evolved running from predators, not being predators. Catherine nodded. The humans had no natural weapons, no biological advantages. They were soft and slow and fragile. The galaxy's records showed them to be emotional creatures, prone to panic and fear. We will intercept them in 3 days, Catherine announced. Standard protocol, distress beacon to draw them in, quick elimination of security, then the primary targets. I want this done in under 10 minutes. The assassins began their preparations. They checked their cloaking suits, which bent light around their bodies and made them nearly invisible. They sharpened their monomolecular blades, which could cut through steel like water. They calibrated their neural disruptors, which could shut down any nervous system with a single touch. For 3 days they studied human anatomy, learning exactly where to strike for instant death. They memorized the layout of the olive branch from stolen blueprints. They practiced moving through corridors and eliminating holographic targets. On the night before the mission, Catherine stood alone in his quarters, looking at images of Admiral Kara Vance. She was an older human female with gray hair and tired eyes. She looked like someone's grandmother, soft and harmless. Prey animals who forgot their place, Catherine said to himself. This will be the easiest contract we have ever taken. He could not have been more wrong. Across the void of space, the HSS Olive Branch continued its journey toward the peace negotiations, unaware of the death that hunted it. But within its hull, Admiral Kara Vance stood at her window, watching the stars with eyes that had seen too many battles. Something felt wrong. She could not explain it, but 60 years of military service had taught her to trust her instincts. And right now, every instinct she had was screaming that danger was coming. She touched the old scar on her neck, a reminder of the colony wars, and made a decision. Commander Cole, she said into her communicator, I want the Marines on standby. Call it a training exercise if anyone asks. Trouble, Admiral, Cole's voice replied. Vance looked out at the peaceful stars and felt the weight of decades pressing down on her shoulders. She had not survived this long by ignoring her gut. Maybe, she said quietly, maybe not, but I would rather be wrong and ready than right and dead. In the darkness between ships, the silent choir moved closer, confident in their superiority, certain of their victory. They had never faced humans before, had never seen what happened when you cornered a species that had spent millions of years learning to survive. They were about to learn. The HSS Olive Branch drifted through the endless black of space like a silver needle threading through dark cloth. It was 3 days from the Kepler Accord station, 3 days from what could be the most important peace treaty in human history. But Admiral Kara Vance could not shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. She stood in the observation deck, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the distant stars. At 58 years old, she had served humanity through its darkest chapters: the colony wars, the Mars Rebellion, the siege of New Shanghai. She had buried friends and enemies alike, and she had learned one truth above all others. Peace was precious because it was so easily shattered. You should be sleeping, Admiral, said a voice behind her. Vance turned to see Commander Marcus Cole walking toward her. He was a tall man with dark skin and sharp eyes that never seemed to rest. He had served under her for 15 years, and she trusted him more than anyone else alive. Could say the same to you, Marcus, Vance replied. Cole shrugged his broad shoulders. He was dressed in casual clothes, but Vance noticed the slight bulge of a sidearm beneath his jacket. Marcus Cole was never truly off duty. Something bothering you? He asked, coming to stand beside her at the window. Vance was quiet for a long moment, the stars reflected in her gray eyes like distant memories. We picked up a distress beacon 2 hours ago, she finally said. A damaged cargo hauler requesting assistance. Standard protocol says we respond. But, Cole prompted. But the signal pattern is wrong, Vance said. It is close, very close to legitimate, but there is something off about the timing. The intervals between pulses are too perfect, too mechanical. Cole's eyes narrowed. He had served in enough combat zones to know that instincts were often more reliable than sensors. Could be nothing, he said carefully. Could be everything, Vance replied. I have ordered the ship to yellow alert. I want your Marines ready, Marcus. Tell them it is a training exercise. Cole nodded slowly. He did not question her judgment. In 15 years, her instincts had saved their lives more times than he could count. What about the diplomats? He asked. Ambassador Chen will ask questions. Let her ask, Vance said. I would rather explain a false alarm than attend her funeral. Cole left to prepare his people, and Vance remained at the window, watching the darkness. Somewhere out there, hidden in the black, something was waiting. She just hoped she was wrong. In the lower decks of the Olive Branch, Commander Cole gathered his Marine detachment. 24 soldiers stood at attention in the cargo bay, their faces hard and focused. These were not parade ground soldiers meant for show. They were veterans of the colony wars, survivors of battles that had turned entire moons into graveyards. Listen up, Cole said, his voice carrying across the bay. Admiral has a bad feeling about a distress call we are responding to. Now maybe it is nothing, maybe some cargo hauler really did break down in the middle of nowhere. But we are going to treat this like the real thing until we know for certain. Sergeant Yuki Tanaka stepped forward. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. Her body carried scars from a dozen battles, and her personnel file listed 17 confirmed kills in close combat. Rules of engagement, sir, she asked. If it is legitimate, we are heroes helping stranded civilians, Cole replied. If it is not, we do what we do best. The Marines exchanged glances. They understood perfectly. Get your gear, Cole ordered. Full tactical loadout. I want thermal imaging, sonar equipment, and night vision on everyone. We are also going dark. Kill the lights in the approach corridors and coat yourselves in thermal masking gel. Sir, asked Private Eric Johansson, a young soldier from the Nordic colonies, if this is just a training exercise, why the full combat prep? Cole looked at the young Marine with eyes that held no warmth. Because the Admiral has been doing this longer than you have been alive, Private, and when she says something feels wrong, I believe her. Now move. The Marines scattered to prepare, and Cole stood alone in the cargo bay. He pulled out his combat knife and tested the edge against his thumb, drawing a thin line of blood. Humans had spent millions of years as prey on their home world, hunted by lions and tigers and bears, chased across savannas by creatures with claws and fangs. But somewhere along the way they had changed. They had become the hunters, tracking their prey across endless distances, never stopping, never tiring. The animals had called them something in those ancient days, a name whispered in fear. The monsters that followed. Cole smiled. The galaxy thought humans were soft, civilized, tame. They thought the suits and the smiles and the diplomatic handshakes were all there was. They were about to learn different. 2 hours later, the Olive Branch approached the damaged cargo hauler. It floated dead in space, its running lights flickering weakly, exactly like a ship in distress should look. On the bridge, Admiral Vance watched the approach with cold eyes. Scans show minimal life signs, reported Lieutenant Kim at the sensor station, consistent with a small crew in distress. Weapon signatures, Vance asked. None detected, Admiral. Vance nodded slowly. Everything looked legitimate. Every reading matched what they should see from a genuine distress situation, and yet her instincts screamed that something was horribly wrong. Open a channel, she ordered. Channel open. Damaged vessel, this is Admiral Kara Vance of the HSS Olive Branch. We are responding to your distress signal. Please confirm your status. Static filled the channel for a moment, then a weak voice replied. Olive Branch, this is the cargo hauler merchant's fortune. Our engine core failed 3 days ago. We are running out of air. Please help us. The voice sounded desperate, afraid, exactly what one would expect from stranded civilians. But Vance noticed something. The voice was too controlled, the words too carefully chosen. "Prepare to dock," she said finally, "but keep shields on standby." She touched her communicator. "Cole, we are docking in 5 minutes. Is your team ready?" "Ready and waiting, Admiral," Cole's voice came back. "We will be in the approach corridor when they come aboard. If they are friendly, they will never know we are there. If they are not, they will know very quickly," Vance finished. "Good hunting, Commander." Aboard the merchant's fortune, Kethrin the Voiceless waited in perfect stillness. His cloaking suit made him nearly invisible, and his 11 assassins were positioned throughout the ship like deadly ghosts. The humans had taken the bait perfectly. "The diplomatic vessel is docking," Syleth reported through their silent communication network. "Standard approach, no sign of military response." "As expected," Kethrin replied. "These are diplomats, not warriors. We will cut through them like grain before the harvest." The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud. Kethrin felt the slight vibration and smiled beneath his mask. In minutes, the leadership of humanity would be dead, and the galaxy would be safe from their expansion. He signaled 4 of his assassins to move first. They would secure the corridor and disable security systems, while he brought the rest of the team to eliminate the primary targets. The airlock hissed open. The assassins moved through in perfect silence, their cloaking technology bending light around their bodies. They saw an empty corridor, lights dimmed, no guards in sight. One assassin paused. He noticed the unusual cold in the air, felt something strange beneath his feet. Was that oil on the floor? Then the lights died completely, and the humans attacked. The darkness was absolute. No emergency lights, no glow from instruments, nothing but pure and perfect black. The 4 assassins of the silent choir froze in the corridor, their enhanced eyes trying to adjust to the sudden blindness. For exactly 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then something moved in the dark, not in front of them but behind, and the first assassin died with a knife buried deep in his throat. He never saw who killed him, never heard them approach. One moment he was alive, the next he was choking on his own blood. "Contact!" Syleth screamed through the communication network. "We have contact." But her warning came too late. The corridor exploded into violence. The humans attacked from everywhere at once. They emerged from the walls, from the ceiling, from panels that should have been too small for any person to hide in. They moved in complete silence, their bodies coated in gel that masked their heat signatures. The assassins were the most feared killers in the galaxy. They had trained for centuries, killed thousands, never known defeat. But in that dark corridor, they faced something they had never encountered before: humans fighting on their own terms. Private Chen struck first. He had been hiding in a maintenance shaft for 2 hours, barely breathing, his body screaming from the cramped position. When the assassins passed beneath him, he dropped like a stone and drove his combat knife through the base of a cloaked skull. The assassin died instantly. Chen was already moving to his next target. "I cannot see them," one of the assassins shouted. His thermal vision showed nothing, his motion sensors detected no movement. It was like fighting ghosts. Sergeant Yuki Tanaka emerged from the shadows beside him. She was small enough that he had dismissed the heat signature as a pipe or cable. His last thought was confusion as her blade opened his throat. 3 assassins dead in 15 seconds. Syleth, the only survivor of the forward team, backed against a wall. Her 4 blade arms were raised defensively, cutting the air in patterns designed to stop any attack. She was faster than any human, stronger than any human, and she had killed hundreds of warriors in her life. A shape moved in the darkness. Syleth struck with lightning speed, her blade slicing through nothing. It was a decoy, a piece of cloth thrown to draw her attack. The real attack came from below. A human slid across the oil-slicked floor under her guard and drove a combat knife up through her abdomen. Scythe screamed and slashed downward, her blade cutting deep into the human's shoulder. Tanaka grunted in pain but did not retreat. Instead, she grabbed Scythe's arm, twisted it with a sickening crack, and plunged her knife in again. "You should have stayed home," Tanaka growled through gritted teeth. Scythe collapsed, and Tanaka stumbled back against the wall, blood pouring from her wounded shoulder. Another Marine rushed to help her, but she waved them off. "I can still fight," she said. "Focus on the mission." In his ship, Kethrin the Voiceless watched through his remaining assassins' visual feeds as 4 of his finest killers died in less than 2 minutes. He had never seen anything like it. "What is happening?" one of his assassins demanded. "These are supposed to be diplomats." "They are not diplomats," Kethrin said quietly. "They are something else entirely." He reviewed the footage. The humans had not fought like civilized beings. They had fought like animals, like predators. They used the environment like a weapon, turning darkness and cold and even the oil on the floor into advantages. They attacked from ambush, struck vital points, and disappeared before their victims could respond. This was not defense, this was hunting. "All units move in," Kethrin ordered. "We outnumber them and outmatch them. Stay together and eliminate any resistance." The remaining 8 assassins, including Kethrin himself, moved through the airlock and into the human vessel. They activated their combat modes, moving in a tight formation that protected all angles. The corridors of the olive branch had become a nightmare. Lights flickered randomly, casting dancing shadows that could hide anything. The temperature had dropped to near freezing, and strange sounds echoed from everywhere and nowhere. "They are trying to disorient us," Kethrin said. "Do not let them. Focus on your training." But his assassins were already beginning to show fear. These were beings who had killed emperors without flinching, yet something about this place, these humans, made them uneasy. They reached a junction where 3 corridors met. Kethrin signaled for them to stop and scan the area. "Movement ahead," one assassin reported. "One human, wounded, moving slowly." Kethrin saw it too, a human soldier limping down the corridor, leaving a trail of blood, easy prey. "It is a trap," Kethrin said immediately. "They want us to follow." But even as he spoke, 2 of his assassins were already moving forward, eager to score a kill after their earlier humiliation. They rushed toward the wounded human, blades raised. The wounded human suddenly straightened and threw something at the floor. A blinding flash filled the corridor, overloading the assassin's enhanced vision. Before they could recover, gunfire erupted from hidden positions. Both assassins fell, their bodies riddled with holes. "Fall back," Kethrin shouted. But there was nowhere to fall back to. Behind them, the corridor had sealed. Emergency doors that should not have been able to close had slammed shut, cutting off their retreat. They were trapped inside the ship with the humans. "You made a mistake coming here," a voice echoed through the corridor. It was female, calm, and carried the weight of absolute authority. "This is Admiral Kara Vance. Your contract has been terminated." Kethrin's blood ran cold. He had studied this woman, had dismissed her as a soft diplomat past her prime. Now he realized his intelligence had been catastrophically wrong. "We are the silent choir," he shouted back. "We have never failed a contract. You cannot stop us." Vance's laugh was quiet, but somehow filled the entire corridor. "You have been killing species who forgot how to fight," she replied. "Species who grew soft behind their technology and their walls. But we humans, we never forgot. We just pretend we did." As if to prove her point, the Marines attacked again. They came from access panels, from ventilation shafts, from shadows that should not have been deep enough to hide anything. They fought with knives and bare hands, closing to distances where the assassins' technological advantages meant nothing. Private Eric Johansson took a neural disruptor blast to the chest. The weapon should have shut down his nervous system for hours, leaving him helpless. Instead, he staggered, screamed, and kept coming. 30 seconds later, he tackled his attacker and beat him to death with his bare fists. The assassin's last sensation was absolute disbelief. Catherine watched another of his elite killers die and felt something he had not experienced in centuries: fear. These humans should not be able to do this. They were fragile, slow, weak. Every metric said they should be easy prey. But they were not prey. They were something far, far worse. "Retreat to the ship," Catherine ordered his surviving assassins. "We are leaving." He started running toward the airlock, his enhanced speed carrying him faster than any human could follow. Behind him, he heard his remaining team members falling one by one, screams cut short, bodies hitting the floor, the wet sounds of blades finding flesh. By the time he reached the airlock junction, he was alone. And Commander Marcus Cole was waiting for him. The human stood in front of the airlock door, blocking the only escape route. Blood dripped from a wound on his head, and his uniform was torn and stained. He had clearly been fighting hard. But he was smiling. "Going somewhere?" Cole asked. The voiceless stared at the human blocking his escape. Commander Cole stood between him and freedom, one man against the deadliest assassin in the galaxy. By every measure, by every calculation, Catherine should have been able to kill this human in seconds and walk away. But something in Cole's eyes made him hesitate, something old and hungry and patient. "Your team is dead," Cole said. His voice was conversational, almost friendly, as if they were discussing the weather. "All 11 of them, scattered throughout this ship in pieces. You are the last one." "Impossible," Catherine replied. "We are the silent choir. We have killed thousands." "You have killed the soft ones," Cole interrupted. "The species that evolved past their survival instincts. Species that forgot what it meant to be hungry, to be hunted, to fight for every single breath." He took a step forward, and Catherine, the most feared assassin in 8,000 years, took a step back. "Let me tell you about humans," Cole continued. "Millions of years ago, we were not the strongest or the fastest things on our planet. We did not have claws or venom or armor. There were 100 species that could kill us without trying." Another step forward, another step back. "But we survived. Do you know how?" Cole's smile widened. "We learned to run, not fast. Other things were faster, but far. We could chase prey for days, following their tracks, never stopping, never resting until they collapsed from exhaustion. We hunted by being patient, by being relentless, by refusing to quit." Catherine's back hit a wall. He had nowhere left to retreat. "And then we learned to use tools," Cole said. "Rocks and sticks became spears and bows. We turned our weakness into strength. We became the thing that other predators learned to fear." "You are trying to frighten me," Catherine said. "It will not work." But his voice betrayed him. There was a tremor there, a crack in the confidence that had carried him through centuries of killing. "I am not trying to frighten you," Cole replied. "I am trying to explain. You came here thinking we were prey animals who forgot our place in the food chain, but we did not forget anything. We just learned to pretend. We put on suits and built cities and created governments, but underneath all of that," he tapped his chest, "underneath, we are still the same creatures that hunted mammoths across frozen wastelands, that fought lions with nothing but sharpened sticks, that painted our victories on cave walls in the blood of our kills." Catherine's blade arm shot forward with speed that should have been impossible to track. It was his signature move, the killing stroke that had ended thousands of lives. Cole moved. He did not dodge. There was no time to dodge. Instead, he stepped into the attack, taking the blade through his shoulder while simultaneously driving his combat knife into Catherine's side. Both fighters staggered back. Catherine touched his wound with disbelief. Humans were supposed to collapse when injured, to go into shock, to die like the fragile creatures they were. Cole pulled the blade out of his own shoulder with a grunt of pain. Blood poured down his arm, but his eyes never left Catherine. That is the thing about pain, Cole said. Humans have a different relationship with it than most species. It does not stop us, it motivates us. Every injury makes us more dangerous, not less. He attacked again, and the real fight began. Kethrin was faster. His reflexes had been enhanced by technology beyond human understanding. And his blade arms could strike from angles that should have been impossible to defend against. He landed hit after hit, opening wounds on Cole's arms, his legs, his torso. But Cole kept coming. Every time knocked him down, he got back up. Every time he wounded him, Cole used the moment of attack to score his own strike. It was like fighting a force of nature, something that did not understand the concept of surrender. Throughout the ship, similar battles were ending. The last of the silent choir fell to Marines who refused to stay down, who fought through injuries that would have killed most species, who used every dirty trick and brutal technique their ancestors had developed over millions of years of survival. Sergeant Tanaka, despite her wounded shoulder, killed 2 more assassins by luring them into a trap, a corridor she had filled with flammable cleaning chemicals. When they entered, she sparked her lighter and watched them burn. Private Johansson, still feeling the effects of the neural disruptor, strangled an assassin with his bare hands. The alien was stronger than him, but Johansson simply refused to let go, tightening his grip until his arms cramped and his vision went black. He woke up an hour later with the dead assassin still in his arms. Private Chen died stopping an assassin from reaching the diplomatic quarters. He held the corridor alone for 4 minutes, taking wound after wound until his backup arrived. His last words were, "Tell my daughter I was brave." The humans did not fight cleanly or fairly. They fought to win, and winning meant making sure the enemy never got up again. Back at the airlock, Kethrin was starting to tire. He had been fighting for what felt like hours, and the human in front of him simply would not die. Cole was covered in wounds, barely able to stand, and still he kept attacking. "Why will you not stay down?" Kethrin demanded. "You are defeated, your body is failing, why do you keep fighting?" Cole actually laughed, blood spraying from his lips. "You really do not understand, do you?" he said. "This is not just what we do, this is what we are. Humans do not quit, we do not surrender, we are too stubborn, too stupid, too proud. We would rather die on our feet than live on our knees." He lunged forward with the last of his strength, and Kethrin, exhausted, confused, afraid, made a mistake. He hesitated for just a fraction of a second. It was enough. Cole's knife found its mark, sliding between the plates of Kethrin's armor and into his chest. The assassin gasped and staggered backward, looking down at the blade with something like wonder. "How," he whispered, "I am better than you, faster, stronger, more experienced. How did you beat me?" Cole slumped against the wall, his own injuries finally catching up to him. He looked at the dying assassin with something that might have been pity. "You are better at killing," he admitted, "but we are better at surviving. You train to end fights quickly, but we train to outlast our opponents. We evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, remember?" He smiled weakly. "You just got tired before we did." Kethrin slid down the opposite wall, feeling his life drain away. In 8,000 years, the silent choir had never failed a contract. Now they were extinct, wiped out by a species they had dismissed as prey. "One more question," he managed, "before I die." Cole nodded. "Why do you pretend to be peaceful?" Kethrin asked. "You are clearly built for war, why hide it?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired but honest. "Because we know what we are," he said. "And we are terrified of it too. We have seen what happens when humans embrace their violent nature. We have done it to ourselves often enough. We choose peace because we know the alternative. We are not gentle because we are weak. We are gentle because we know exactly how dangerous we can be." The voiceless, the most feared assassin in the galaxy, died with those words echoing in his ears. His last thought was a warning he would never be able to deliver. Do not anger the humans. Do not corner them. Do not make them remember what they are. Because what they are is terrifying. The silence after battle was always the hardest part. Admiral Cara Vance walked through the corridors of her ship, stepping over bodies and around pools of blood. The lights had been restored, but the scars of combat would take much longer to repair. 12 assassins had come aboard the HSS Olive Branch. 12 of the deadliest killers in the galaxy, beings who had never failed a contract in 8,000 years. Now they were all dead, their bodies scattered throughout the ship like broken toys. The cost had been high. 6 Marines had given their lives defending the ship, and 8 more were in the medical bay with wounds that would have killed most species. But they were alive, and the diplomatic mission would continue. Vance found Commander Cole slumped against the wall near the airlock, surrounded by medics working frantically to save his life. He had lost more blood than any human should be able to survive, but his heart was still beating. "Stubborn fool," Vance said, though her voice was thick with emotion. Cole's eyes flickered open. He managed a weak smile. "Had to keep the exit blocked," he whispered. "Could not let him get away." "You almost died," Vance replied. "Almost is not the same as actually," Cole said. "I will be fine. Give me a few days and some bad hospital food." Vance shook her head, but she was smiling. That was Cole, always making jokes, even when he should be unconscious. She left him in the care of the medics and continued her walk through the ship. She needed to see everything, to understand exactly what had happened and why. In the cargo bay, she found Sergeant Tanaka sitting on a crate, her wounded shoulder wrapped in bandages. Tanaka was staring at her hands, which were still stained with blood that was not her own. "Sergeant," Vance said quietly. Tanaka looked up. Her eyes were haunted but clear. "Admiral," she replied, "we won." "We did. Are you all right?" Tanaka considered the question carefully before answering. "I killed 4 of them tonight, 4 of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, and I am sitting here wondering if I should feel proud or horrified." Vance sat down beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Do you know why I joined the diplomatic corps?" Vance finally asked. Tanaka shook her head. "Because I was tired of killing," Vance said. "I spent 30 years fighting wars, the colony wars, the Mars Rebellion, a dozen smaller conflicts that history has already forgotten. I have killed more people than I can count, and I remember every single one of them." She looked at her own hands. They were clean, but she knew what they had done. "I thought that if I dedicated the rest of my life to peace, maybe I could make up for some of it," she continued. "Maybe I could leave the galaxy a little better than I found it. But tonight reminded me of something I had been trying to forget." "What?" Tanaka asked. "That sometimes the only way to protect peace is to be very, very good at war." Vance stood and helped Tanaka to her feet. There was still work to do, bodies to collect, reports to file, a message to compose that would change the course of galactic history. 2 hours later, Admiral Vance sat alone in her quarters. The recording equipment was set up in front of her, its red light blinking steadily. She had spent the last hour deciding what to say, how to frame what had happened in a way that would send the right message without starting a war. She took a deep breath and began. "This message is intended for the Galactic Coalition and any species who participated in the attack on the HSS Olive Branch," she said. "I am Admiral Cara Vance, commander of humanity's diplomatic fleet." She paused, gathering her thoughts. 12 hours ago, assassins from the organization known as the Silent Choir boarded my vessel with the intention of killing me and my senior staff. They were hired to destabilize humanity's government by eliminating its leadership. They were told that we would be easy targets, soft diplomats with no real defenses. Vance's expression hardened. "They were wrong. All 12 assassins are dead. The organization known as the Silent Choir no longer exists. We have captured their ship, their communications logs, and their contract information. We know who hired them and we know why. She let that sink in for a moment. I am going to show you something now. This is unedited footage from our security cameras. I want you to see exactly what happened when you sent killers to murder our people. The recording cut to the battle footage, humans emerging from shadows, fighting with knives and bare hands, refusing to fall even when wounded. It showed Private Johansson shaking off a neural disruptor blast. It showed Sergeant Tanaka killing an assassin twice her size. It showed Commander Cole blocking the airlock alone, covered in blood, smiling. When the footage ended, Vance reappeared on screen. "We did not ask for this," she said. "We came to negotiate peace. We wanted to be friends, to trade, to share our cultures and our futures. We still want that. Humanity has no interest in conquest or domination." Her voice grew colder. "But let this serve as a warning. We did not claw our way to the stars because we are gentle. We survived extinction events that killed 90% of all life on our planet. We survived ice ages and plagues and predators and each other. We learned to be civilized, to be kind, to seek peace, but we never forgot how to fight." She leaned forward, her eyes burning with quiet intensity. "We choose peace because we know what the alternative looks like. We have seen it in our own history. Centuries of war, millions of dead, cities turned to ash. We are gentle now because we learned, through terrible cost, that gentleness is better than the alternative." Vance stood and walked to the window. When she spoke again, her voice was softer but no less firm. "Do not make us unlearn that lesson. Do not corner us. Do not threaten our families. Do not mistake our desire for peace as weakness. We will always extend the hand of friendship first. But if you slap that hand away and reach for a weapon, you will discover why every predator on our home world learned to fear us." She turned back to the camera one final time. "The HSS Olive Branch will continue to the Kepler Accords as scheduled. We are still prepared to negotiate in good faith. But know this: if there is another attack, another assassination attempt, another act of aggression against humanity, we will not respond with diplomacy." The recording ended. 3 days later, the HSS Olive Branch arrived at the Kepler Accord station. Its hull bore the scars of battle, blast marks and blade scratches that the crew had deliberately left unrepaired. The ship docked at a station suddenly gone very, very quiet. Every species in the galaxy had seen the message. They had watched humans fight and die and win against impossible odds. They had heard Admiral Vance's words and understood their meaning. On the Velkorath station, High Arbiter Zesrix watched the Olive Branch dock. His 4 hands trembled as he clutched the armrests of his throne. Beside him, the representatives of the other elder races sat in stunned silence. "The silent choir," Ambassador Thesic whispered. 8,000 years of perfect victories ended in a single night by a handful of humans. "What do we do now?" Lord Vethkai asked. His ancient voice cracked with something that might have been fear. Zesrix was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the footage he had seen, humans fighting through injuries that should have been fatal, smiling as they killed, refusing to surrender even when outmatched in every measurable way. He thought about Admiral Vance's words, "Do not make us unlearn that lesson." "We pray," Zesrix finally said. "We pray that they meant what they said about wanting peace, and we never, ever give them a reason to stop wanting it." In the distance, the HSS Olive Branch waited at the docking bay, its hull scarred but unbroken. Inside, Admiral Vance prepared to walk into the peace negotiations with her head held high. The galaxy had learned something important that day. Humans were not prey animals who had forgotten their place. They were predators who had chosen to be gentle, and that choice could be unmade. The negotiations would go very well indeed.